Sure.
The day that she was diagnosed, prior to, we had noticed the drinking and stuff like that. So let me go in that order, or I'll forget something.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, so her thirst was the first thing that I could say I noticed. And sometimes it was extreme, but we live at the beach. So, and I have a cleaning business, which in high season, everything's on the weekend. So I have the luxury of having the week pretty free to, go to the beach with my kids. And my brother had been in town for July 4th, and we try to hit the beach every day. It's kind of like a little contest we try to do, see how many days in a row we can go. So we're in July, and it had been kind of mild-ish summer until July, and then boom, it was really, really hot. And we're at the beach every day, and so of course she's thirsty. And I always take water and Gatorade, but she would not drink the Gatorade at all. For some reason, it had to be water. If I ran out of water, we drank somebody else's around us water. We had to have water. And so I did make a mental note of it, and I even did Google it, and I saw diabetes.
You did?
I did. And I said, no way. No way. She's healthy. She's happy. She's playing. I would know if she had diabetes. So that was sign number one. Sign number two.
When was that? What month was that? July?
That was in July. Probably a week and a half before diagnosis.
Okay.
Well, no, because maybe even 2 weeks. She was diagnosed on the 14th of July. My brother was here July 4th. So that time.
Okay.
Hi, baby. Then the second thing was she would pee through her diaper at night. So she was in the middle of potty training. So wear diapers during the day and frequent trips to the bathroom. She's potty training. That's why she's going to the bathroom during the day so much, because every little urge, let's go potty. At night, she was peeing through the diapers. And I even switched and bought overnight, thinking she's just a bigger girl and she's just got more pee. So another thing, I saw it, I recognized it, I even did something about it. I bought, thicker diapers, but I didn't know that it was the diabetes.
Yep.
Third thing, weight loss. So, going to the beach every day, we were hanging our bathing suits to dry and reusing them. And, it didn't get shrunk by the dryer or whatever. I noticed that her bottoms were loose at the beach. And I was like, what? But, I thought maybe that's what it was. And I could see it in her face a little bit too.
Yeah.
And, but babies' faces change from not so chubby little babies to they start to thin out and they're more active, which we were active and in the sun. So I was like, well, her looks are changing. So, but I did notice that. And now when I go back in pictures, I can see well before that this was starting. I can see it in her shoulders, especially in her face. She was just very gaunt looking. But at the time, I just didn't know. Then the clingy and whiny, that was probably just in the days before. We were at the beach. I had other family come down after my brother had left, and she didn't want to play in the sand. She didn't want to, boogie board. She didn't want to do anything. She just wanted me to hold her. Which
she didn't feel good.
No, she didn't feel good, and I didn't know that. She just wanted me, and so I'm like, all right. But she's also 2, so you're like, is this a phase? She just wants her mommy. She just loves me. So there was that, and then the blank stare. So these are all things that happened prior to now we're fast rolling into something's really wrong. She would just stare through me almost, and you'd be like, Delilah, and she'd finally come to, and I wasn't the only one that noticed it. And after her diagnosis, the people that did know, we talked about it and said, do you think that was part of it? Maybe she was having a bit of a honeymoon part of it and being low in that point. I don't know. Or maybe she was just super, super high that I don't know. But she definitely was just not there.
Yeah.
So those were all of the little things that I saw.
Okay. Drinking a lot, obviously. She was going to the bathroom a lot, which,
Right.
You could kind of, one goes with the other. You
Right.
could say, okay, well, it's because she's drinking a lot.
Right.
So she's peeing a lot. And then you notice she started to look a little different, like off. That's what I noticed in Cassie too, but that was like the 24 hours before.
Really?
So you noticed that.
Mm-hmm.
What happened, or what made you go, okay, something's really not right. This is not just a hot July. This is not just that she's drinking more fluids. This is not just potty training her and she is needing different pull-ups or diapers. Like something is off.
So July 14th was her diagnosis. Backtrack 2 days. So on the 12th, she got up, she ate breakfast, and then shortly after, she vomited all over the bathroom floor.
On the 12th?
Yes.
Okay.
And she was lethargic.
And she was. Okay.
At this point, I was like, okay, the drinking, now she's vomiting, the clingy. We are in the time of COVID, so of course that crossed my mind. Crap, is this COVID?
Mm-hmm.
Or she's got a stomach virus and her body's just trying to flush it out.
Mm-hmm.
So, certainly don't want to take her in for vomiting during COVID if I don't have to take her into the doctor. So I hydrated her, got her to drink, which she was fine doing. And then we just rested on the couch. And then later that day, she threw up again. So I'm like, this is definitely a stomach virus. She was running a very, very, throw up, baby. She was running a very, very low fever. So in my mind,
interesting,
it went together. And the next day, got up. She seemed a little bit better. Like she actually did keep
so this would be the 13th.
The 13th. Kept a little bit of food down. So her diagnosis being the 14th, we were already in the hospital. So this is going to lead to the night of the 13th. Mm-hmm. The 13th seemed a little bit better. And then as the day progressed, she was very tired, threw up again. But then in the evening, she started breathing very rapidly to where her chest almost had like a hiccup at the end of her breath in. Wow. And, I'm like, are you okay? I thought maybe she was working herself up, but she said, I can't help it. And I said, we're going.
Yeah. No, that's okay. It's fine. Yeah. It's a lot. Yeah.
So the whole ride to the ER, I'm thinking she has COVID. Sorry.
Summer, you don't have. I apologize. No, take your time. This is like, why are we doing this? But seriously, we know why we're doing this.
It's okay, baby. It's just because I love you so much. So we get to the ER, and of course the doctors, have you traveled anywhere? All the questions they ask you. But they said, yeah, this could be COVID, and we'll test her.
They did at first.
They did, yeah. But
Can I ask you something? I don't want to cut you off or distract you, and I do not want to stop you from. How long did it take them to prick her finger?
That was next. That was the second thing. They could see that she was really dehydrated, and so they immediately wanted to get fluids in her, but the only places they could get to her were her feet because she was so dehydrated, even though she drank so much. The next thing was they poked her finger, and she was 390. And I knew then I missed it. I missed it. It was diabetes, and I missed it. But I saw it. I read the words, and I missed it. Because I thought it could be so many other things. But it wasn't. And so here we are. We got sent to the PICU at our hospital. We spent 5 days there. No one could come for the first 3 days because we needed her results. And if she was positive, that would change things too. She was negative. I was not allowed to leave the room to take a shower. My husband could not come see her. Her siblings couldn't come see her at all the whole time. It could only be the other parent. My husband was allowed to come up pretty much the last 2 days we were there to bring me clothes and let me go take a shower. The nurses were very awesome. They let me sleep in that crib cage thing with her. I said, she co-sleeps with us. I have to sleep with her. I can't sleep in that. And then finally they said, look, if you'll sign a fall waiver, whatever, we'll get her a bed and you can get into bed with her. So we were able to get a bed 2 nights later, but I slept in a cage for 2 nights with her. Crash course on how to be a nurse.
Right. We could do a whole 3 months just on from the time you're given a diagnosis to the time you leave. I mean, it is a lot.
The first time she put the pen in my hand, the insulin pen, and I'm thinking, I can't poke my child, or like, I have to do this. And she's like, yeah, this is for her life. You have to get over your fear. And I remember the first time I gave it, it was like the shot was going in slow-mo, like, oh.
Yeah.
Counted the seconds till it landed in her skin. But she took it like a champ. She never cried. Every finger poke, she'd be like, okay, this finger. She'd give me her finger. So out of any child out of mine, if any of them had to have it, this was the one, because my other children are drama. They would not have been able to do this. But she handled it so well. The 14th was when we got our official, because they wanted to do her antibodies or whatever. And so the endo that works with that hospital came in and met with me, and we started planning from there how to manage her. I ended up finding an endo in Florence, which is an hour and a half away from us. But she's a peds endo. So we took her instead. So we make the drive pretty much every 3 months is when we go meet with her. I did cry. My husband just walked in the room. I said, I hope I don't cry. He said, you're gonna.
It's so fresh, and it's a life. I mean, I like to call it, and I've referred to it is just, it's a sucker. It's you can't really put into words. I mean, it's a sucker punch. It's the wind being knocked out of you. It's everything, every worst fear comes crashing down on you, that your child has a lifelong disease, and it's a lot to process in a little bit of time.
Oh, for sure.
And it's important that we do these, and I hope some of the other members will do just like you've done and join me and log on. I mean, yes, we're probably going to cry. It's just part of it.
It is. And that's what, like, when I messaged you that night and I said, I feel like it would be good therapy. This is why. Because there's other people that are crying right now too, because they know exactly how it feels. How scary it is, how alone you feel at 3 o'clock in the morning when you're up poking fingers and please drink the juice, or seeing an eye about another DKA, because it can happen fast.
Can I do this?
Yeah, you can do that. So I think it is important for us to talk about it, but also talk to each other and be supportive of each other.
For sure.
I have a very supportive family, and I have a cousin. She's not blood related to me, but she is also a type 1. And
really?
She quickly, came in and started talking to me, and she showed up one day with all these good snacks that she could give her. or that I could give her.
Yes.
Take her to play. Take her to play. Yeah. And a lot of them she found at Aldi's. I don't know if y'all have Aldi's, but Aldi's
we do. Oh yeah.
kind of cheap. And so she found all these good snacks, and a lot of them were free. And she started explaining that to me, because the hospital didn't talk to me about low carb choices. It was just what to bolus. You know, this. At first, I came home with a little cheat sheet, and we were doing the pen, and so if she was this to this at mealtime, she would get so many units, and so forth. And then there was another set for bedtime. Now that she's on Omnipod, and so that I just tell it what she is and tell it what she's eating, and then it sends it to her. So that's pretty good. But yeah, I mean, the signs were there, and I saw them. I noticed them enough to make an excuse in my mind that they were something else. But yeah, it was diabetes.
I did it too. We probably have all done it, because, the whole reason that I named the group Before Aware was for this. Yeah. Because when we were in the when we were in the ER, and the endo came in, and he started drawing a pancreas. Well, what he told me was a pancreas on the whiteboard that I hadn't even noticed. And he's drawing it, and he's drawing these dots. And I remember thinking, like, what is happening? I still did not understand. I don't know if it's just because everything happened so fast, Did it happen like that for you guys? I mean, I remember the defining moment when I knew, okay, I'm not paranoid. Like, this is not good. Doctors and nurses quit knocking, and they just started appearing.
Yeah. Well, the doctor actually told me, he said, your daughter's very sick. And hearing those words, especially, I mean, the year of COVID, your fear is that too. But hearing that, and then her breathing is called small breathing. So basically what was happening is she had no insulin helping her body absorb the sugar, the glucose that she needed. So her body was eating itself and making her blood acidic. And the body breathes like that to try to blow off some of that acid. And so she breathed like that. Like when he said COVID, they also were checking her O2 stats. She was fine. So I was like, oh, well, good, because all I'm thinking is ventilators, that's what's wrong. And vomiting is a part of COVID and all that too. So
yeah, I could see where you would, and it's the slightest little self-talk I think that you have. Like, you were able to write it off to, it's July, it's hot, she's peeing more because she's drinking more, and those things go together. And I did the same exact thing. And I guarantee you, unless you had someone in the family, with it, or someone to kind of be right there on top of you to catch it, which is another thing that I'm really passionate about, is all the DKA stories that I read. It's just heartbreaking. And we're the lucky ones, unfortunately, because not every child gets to live with type 1, and not every child makes it out of DKA. And I remember thinking back, absolutely, how clueless we were, the guilt, because I talked to myself, out of okay, she's starting to look not herself. And I chalked it up to, it's summer, it's hot, she's playing outside, she's drinking more, so she's eating less, which is what she was doing. And then when it became apparent, it was right smack in our face. We took her to the ER, but when they're telling you, it's DKA, and they pricked her finger and they said, okay, well, it's not registering on the meter. And I said, well, what does that mean? I was just, it was like they were speaking another language. And they said, well, that means it's over 700. And I said, well, what does that mean? I had no idea. They were not, I think they were kind of trying to, I don't know. They were tiptoeing maybe, I don't know. But when they said it means that she's over 700, and I was like, well, what does that mean? And then that's the first time I ever heard the term DKA. And I still didn't fully understand it when we left there.
And so, you know, diabetic ketoacidosis, you hear everybody like, well, what's the difference from keto, like the keto diet being in ketosis to, and I'm like, totally different. I mean, I had to look it up too, so I get it, but it's totally different. And, you know, learning that her body, like, it really was like an elementary science class for me to understand pancreas, insulin. And this is sad because years ago I did childcare. I had a type 1 juvenile in my care, but all I knew was how to count his carbs and bolus. What, you know, I didn't know anything about the disease. My cousin, I still didn't know. She, you know, Thanksgiving, Christmas, when I would see her, she would go excuse herself to the bathroom and give herself insulin before we ate. Like, we didn't really talk about it. That's another thing, you know, like, I think we should normalize talking about it so that people do understand. Because, you know, my friends that their kids don't have it, they're, you know, well, can you feed her the same thing every day? And maybe I'm like, no, because the body and the hormones, they just don't, it doesn't work that way. I mean, and plus she was 2.
Yeah.
You know, some 2-year-olds will eat the same thing every day. That's all they'll, but not her. She's she wants what she wants. So, you know, that kind of stuff, you know, even though I've cared for type 1 and had family that was type 1, I really didn't understand it to have to look at it and say, okay, well, insulin is basically a key that opens your cell so that your cell can absorb the sugar so that your body can have energy. How do we not all know this? But I didn't, you know, and she wasn't. And I don't know. I often, and I think I've made a post about this before, when did it happen? What was like the point of no return? Mm-hmm. I don't know.
And it's, I mean, it's, you know, I thought back too when they said, you know, it's a DKA, and then, you know, he gave me the suspected diagnosis, and then he said, we're able to tell, you know, that her levels were already high 3 months ago. Mm-hmm. And I remember thinking, 3 months?
Yeah, our first
3 months. I don't know if I was more irritated by the wasted time, because I'm looking at her hooked up to things, and she feels as horrible as she looks. And I remember just being so angry. Like, 3 months went by, like I said in that video that I made for the paper. 3 months were like ticking every night, barely hurling at her. And we could have known, and she wouldn't have been in DKA. And I still don't even know what it was over 700. I don't even know. It didn't register. I don't know an exact. It was over 700.
Days and nights here where she's above what her diagnosis number was. And it terrifies me, because if 390 send her into DKA, and who's to say she might have been higher than that? Maybe some of the water brought her down. I don't know. But yeah, when we hit, like, when that Dexcom says high and it doesn't even register anymore, and then we start finger poking and it says high, I'm like, and then to get a kid to pee in a cup so we can check your ketones, like, the whole world of diabetes, I had no clue. I just have so much appreciation for, you know, the people that were before us, because I didn't know.
I can't imagine. I mean, the technology and everything, yes, but we have to get the word out there on all the parents, and I mean, even adults that were diagnosed with it. And unfortunately, when they found out, they were in DKA. Mm-hmm. And it just doesn't have to get that far, you know. And I just felt,
you know, when she was drinking a lot, there was a conversation that my husband and I had one of the evenings, and it was because a friend of mine had come over too, and she doesn't see Delilah every day, and she was like, Delilah, why are you drinking so much water? And she said something too, and so my husband and I actually talked and said, well, we're going to watch her, you know, and I said, I'll just take her, and they'll probably just check her pee or something, you know. But the next day was when she threw up. And so I'm like, nah, I didn't know that vomiting was a
No, you
sign.
don't. And I've heard some people say they were like their child was mixed diagnosed, that they were told it was a UTI
Hmm.
or it was the flu, a growth spurt. And some people, it took like a week or so to get the diagnosis. And I mean, a week. I know a difference of Delilah and Cassie and probably every other type one. The 24 hours right before is huge. I
Yeah.
mean, it's huge. I mean, it's just, I don't know. It's something that like, I feel an obligation now. I
Yeah.
mean, I feel an obligation
Right.
because it's like, yeah, I mean, it's scary to think of how clueless, we were, our family was, and then it makes me feel like, I could have spared her from that. Thank God she gets to live with it. But, the fact that, like I said, not every child makes it out of DKA, we really have to, I don't know, do more as far as educating and getting parents to like, when they hear it, or if they are aware, are they going to write it off? Like, just please don't be afraid to say something. Don't be afraid to say, look, I've noticed, they're peeing more over the past couple, weeks, or, they're eating a little less or whatever. And just, I would say, you probably would agree with this. If you feel something's off or you see something that you haven't noticed over the past couple weeks, it might seem small. It may seem something that you can write off, but if you think for a second that it's, they're peeing more and they're drinking more, um, it's worth a finger prick. I mean, what's it going to hurt?
And something so like those moments where you kind of blame yourself and you think back of all the other things that you could have done.
Yeah.
I have a kit here that was for me during pregnancy to check. I didn't have gestational diabetes, but it was here for me to check. I bought cheap thing at Walmart. It was here.
You did.
And I could have, I didn't think, but yeah.
It's just off our radar. I mean, you don't know. I didn't
Mhm.
even know. I didn't know anything about type 1. Like I said, the first time I ever heard the term DKA was in the emergency room. And then he starts asking me about autoimmune diseases in my family. And does anyone I know have lupus? And I'm looking at him like, what is happening? And so
Yeah.
for us to like acknowledge that we were that clueless, hopefully in doing this, we can prevent another parent from, DKA. You hope, you hope that if
Mhm.
this gets out and gets shared, that a parent that maybe has been thinking, for the last week or two, or have noticed, like you did, like I did, like probably every other parent did, you know what? I don't care if they try to blow me off, or they, not that, you're going to be dismissed. I think that could be maybe, but it could be, they're just going to write me off. Just like, hey, look, I want to check because I've noticed this is different. They're peeing more, they're drinking, more, and it's worth it. It's worth a phone call. I mean,
Yeah.
it is. It's worth a phone call. I mean, if we could only have been so lucky to all of us find out in the pediatrician's office, when they're 210 or something.
And be like, hey, let's take this meter home and keep an eye on this over the next couple of days and see what happens. Yeah, for sure. I am thankful that it, like, that she did get to the point that she was that alarmed, because if she would have just stopped at the throwing up, if that Kusma breathing, or however you say it, if that hadn't
Yeah.
happened, I think I would have still just thought she has stomach virus. So I am thankful that hers transpired in the way that it did, that it alarmed me enough to
Yeah.
get her there. I spent the first night, especially, her respirations were so fast. Like, I just watched that monitor and I'd see it come down by like 2 points, and I'd be like, oh, like,
Wow.
okay, something's working, whatever they're doing. Because they put her on a drip, but they said we can't bring her down super fast because it'll cause swelling in her brain, and she could die. So they had to do it slow. So it really,
They actually said that to you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You don't talk about being scared, you know? So by the second day, her numbers had come down, and they did it in such a way that they gave her the drip of insulin, and then they came in and they introduced a little bit of like sugar water, because they were trying to do it slow, but also teach her body how to use that insulin that was being given to her, to use that sugar water, whatever, I guess it was glucose water. And they explained it, and they said, we've done this process tons and tons of times, and it works. Um, so don't be alarmed when we first start giving her this sugar water that her number is going to rise again. And it did. And I'm like, you know, but they were right. So she was on insulin, saline drip, or IV fluids, and then that sugar concoction, and then they backed off the sugar and let the insulin, and then they were slowly able to back her off the insulin drip, and then that's when we started with the shots. And so by day 4, we were strictly on the shots, on the insulin then at the hospital, and that was when my 2-day crash course. And they even came in and said, do you feel ready to go home? And I was like, can y'all come with me? Because
That's how, yeah, I felt too.
I remember making a post about that. Like, I'm so scared because they're not going to be there. Like, now, if I have a question, when I first gave her shot, I pulled it away too quick, and I saw some insulin come out, and her numbers shot up. And I'm like, it's because she didn't get it all, because, I did it wrong. And just the food, and like all the questions I had, I knew when I went home, those nurses weren't going to be a glass door away.
I know.
They were a phone call away, and they made sure that I knew that. And they did call and check on me. And some of them are in some of the same groups on Facebook that I've joined.
Oh, nice. That's wonderful.
But yeah, very, very, life-changing, scary. And yeah, I saw the signs. I just didn't know that I was seeing signs.
So if you now could go back to, say, right after July 4th and talk to the mom you were then, what would you say?
Who cares if it's nothing? I would have checked it anyway. I think what was so cautious about me was, don't take her into a COVID-infested doctor's office, or what, if you don't have to. I have 4 children. She's my baby. So my first child, I took to the doctor for every sniffle, everything. She's always been a healthy baby. She had 1 ear infection, and then we've all as family had, virus like colds and stuff. But, I used to take them in for every little thing, and the more children I had, and the more times I've gone to the doctor and they say, it's just a virus, it has to run its course. I started to just follow that. And so with her, I'm like, she's throwing up. Viruses have to run their course. It'll pass. But if it's nothing, I don't want to take her and introduce her to COVID, right, or something bigger. So just stay home. And then turns out I start thinking she has COVID, and that's why we, rushed to the hospital. But yeah, if you see something, and moms, we know. We yeah, look at our children, we study their faces when they're asleep. But we know them, and we know when something's off. And so if something's off, something's off. Could be nothing, but it could be this.
Right.
Could be diabetes. So I would say get it checked. And, I had read somewhere that you had said, even if you could just, as a routine at their well visits or even whatever appointments, if you could just make that standard that their levels get checked. And for whatever reason, and maybe it's just always been this high and we just haven't known about it, it's not talked about as much, but I really feel like I've never heard of so much juvenile diabetes ever. There's a lady that she kind of like time shares a house right down the street from me, and her daughter, her I think she's still a teenager, daughter was diagnosed young, and like 2 or 3 other kids in their same school were diagnosed. Like, what's going on? You know, I've never heard so much. And they said with Delilah, it was autoimmune, which our family, has. We've got thyroid issues, we've got eczema, we've got that stuff. So, is that why? And, her endo says she could have had a virus that, her body just attacked itself along with attacking whatever. So, what the root cause, where that started, how long ago, that I don't know. Definitely looking back at some of her pictures, I see it well before July 4th. July 4th.
You do?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, she's got such blonde hair. So that with the little tan face, I think it just all went together. And at the time, I didn't see it. But going back to make that slideshow for today, I wanted people to be able to see how sick she was and just how lively she is now. She's very
kind of the progression.
Yeah, and how her little chubby cheeks. That's her normal, but where she was, and you can see as it starts with her in the hospital, and then she slowly starts to gain her weight back. But in total, she had lost 5 pounds, and on a 2-year-old, that's a lot.
Yeah.
But looking back, I can see even kind of towards the beginning of the summer where her looks had really started. Really? So we're talking, months.
Yeah. Yeah. I think if I were to be honest with myself, I noticed it in the 3 months really in July when she was eating less, and then when it was really just so apparent was she projectile vomited. But when it was really noticeable and you couldn't say, oh, it's because it's the hot summer, she's eating less and she's drinking more, when you couldn't call it something or label it something. She did get a kind of odd, her eyes started to kind of almost get dark, and kind of, I don't know, just her eyes, just looking in her eyes. I remember the 24 hours before, looking in her eyes and thinking something is just off, and I was just so hoping and praying on the way to the ER that they were going to tell me that I was paranoid. I was really hoping for someone to tell me, okay, lady, you're a little bit overreacting, it's this or it's this. Because I am a warrior anyway. She's number 3. And I am still that way. I was like that I'm still that way. I can't undo that. I don't know. And that actually makes me wonder even, I really was talking myself kind of out of, well, she's playing it's hot, until it was, there's no denying it. It just was, there's no denying it. And by that time she was very sick.
Yeah.
The signs are there. They're there. Yeah. So we have to do our best to get them out.
I know that for most, the thirst and the peeing is there. I don't know that everybody gets the vomiting and gets the controlled breathing. And so that's the part that's scary because, Delilah did show those things, which prompted me to go to the ER. But had she not, I could have woken up. And, she could have been in a coma, and so I think it is important to, share the story, share the video, share my ugly crying.
Me too. I did it too. I cried like I've known you for, how can you not? That's what I'm saying. My husband's walked in here. I'm in our bedroom and I've been sitting up on the iPad. I'm scrolling through the group, or someone, has sent me a message, or I'm researching and I ran across a story that's just, not a very good story. And he'll walk in and he'll say, what are you doing? Why do you do this to yourself? Why are you doing this? And, it's bigger than our family. It's bigger than Cassie. It's bigger than, Delight. It's even for like the parents that are starting to see the signs and are questioning themselves. Like, am I overreacting? Is it because, they were sick a week ago and they're trying to get better and so they are eating less? All those little things. And so, he's asking, why are you doing this? Why do you do this to yourself? And it's bigger than us. It's bigger than me. It's bigger than Cassie. And the good outweighs the bad. And, I've sat in the bed and cried for people that I will never even meet.
Yeah.
And that's it. I feel like I said, like, we can make a difference, even if it's just this ugly crying, or hopefully someone else behind you, Summer, will want to join and do the same thing and talk about, because even though our stories are all kind of similar, there are going to be some differences in there. Like you said, not everyone has the labored breathing. Cassie didn't have that. And not everyone has the projectile vomiting. Cassie did have that. But those, there might be some differences, but still it's kind of like the same, but maybe it's just the diagnosis is a little different, or the 24 hours is a little different. I know one story that he was 14 and he stepped on a nail and went to patient first for a tetanus shot. And they somehow, I guess, was doing blood. I mean, that makes sense. And came back and was like, oh, yeah, by the way. And that's how he got his diagnosis.
Wow.
Yeah. So, yeah, I feel like we can
to check that.
What's that?
It should be standard for them to check.
Yeah.
I mean, especially well visits and stuff. If you're, we're going to poke them with vaccines, and poke their finger too,
Yeah. Yeah, I don't see what it could hurt. And it takes 2 seconds. And, it really could stop the DKA. I mean, like I like to tell people, or I've said before, it's not going to rewind time. The finger prick is not going to undo type 1. But it could, however, prevent.
The next move, and your next move could be sooner rather than later.
And the other thing, too, is when you're under duress like that, and you're like your whole world has been flipped upside down, that's not the best time to try to comprehend and learn. And you need to. So I just was like thinking, what's that?
I didn't sleep at all at the hospital. No. And I remember, like, by the third night, I was like, I'm going to go to bed at 8 o'clock. I'm always a night owl anyway, but I'm like, I'm going to go to bed at 8 o'clock. I even tried turning the TV to like the most boring. No, I couldn't sleep. I couldn't stop looking at the monitor. And then everybody came in like once an hour to check her. Like, I just couldn't. So, yeah, by day 5, I'm like in delirium. So I immediately came home and sat he's now 15, my 15-year-old son, and my husband down. And I said, this is what we have to do. This is what we check. These are her numbers. This is the guide we use for her insulin. Like, I had to explain, I had to get it out of me, because God forbid I'm the vessel that brought it home and something happened to me. Who's going to care for her?
No, I know.
Because the COVID part didn't allow my husband to be there for the education like I got, so it was up to bring it home. And so here it is. You guys better learn this too. And now, my 8-year-old daughter can even check her blood sugar for her. Delilah can even poke her own finger and check her sugars. Which is super cute. She'll say, I'm checking my levels. I'm like, okay.
Oh, I love the one video. Here's my Ani pod.
I know.
Yeah. But so, just think if we would have gotten them to the pediatrician's office and they were 210. Okay, that's terrible. And they're going to get the same diagnosis. But you're not, in intensive care, and you're not, it's not this, big flood. I mean, it's the same emotions. Yes, it's going to be the same emotions, but I feel like maybe you could learn and comprehend a little bit better. I don't know. I mean, I feel like I could have. I feel like I would have, as opposed to being thrown into, where she's going to intensive care and, and everything at once, when you're trying to just kind of digest what DKA is and type 1, and then, like you said, you're expected to become a dietitian and RN overnight, and you're like, how am I going to even do this?
Yeah.
And, those first few days when you have to be with it to learn and take all this in. I mean, I guess though, I mean, even if you were given the diagnosis in the pediatrician's office and you weren't in the hospital with them and they weren't, hooked up to things, you probably would still have, I mean, it's a shock. It is.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you still would probably have a hard time taking it all in and learning and comprehending, but, it's so much so fast.
That to me, and that they couldn't get her, like, and they tried. So the reason we knew that she couldn't get it anywhere else is because they attempted her arms. They attempted, couldn't get her. So now she's got tubes coming out of both of her feet. She's got the pulled sock on her finger. It just, that was a lot. And she's got the things on her chest, and some of the pictures in the slideshow don't show. There was one where they had let her like disconnect to go potty, because I said she's potty training and she's really proud that she can be on the potty, and she's wearing a diaper right now, but if she's told to pee in this diaper during the day, you're really going to set her back. So can we like unplug her for a minute and let her go potty, let her feel normal? And they said yeah. And so she did, and there's a picture, maybe I'll post it later, but she's sitting on the couch and her little legs are just so tan, but you can see just everything that's hooked up to her, like where it was. Seeing that kind of stuff is just, nobody should have to go through that. It was hard. And for her, I think that her lethargy helped play a role so that she maybe wasn't so scared, because she just didn't really know like what was going on. And then once she did come to, there was like children, I don't know what they're called, but they are hired to go play with kids in the hospital. So this girl came and played Play-Doh, and we played Barbie doll, and she brought in an empty insulin pen and let Delilah play poking, giving the baby doll a shot and stuff. That did help with the day hours for them to come past, because she's too much. How do you keep her, in a hospital bed? So.
Yeah, and that's a long time. 5 days.
Yeah.
That's a long time she was 2, so. Yeah, that's a long time.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you doing this. I feel like we could keep talking, but
I know. I can be a talker. I can talk all night, but
yeah. But
so someone will go after me and cry a little bit too. So I don't feel so.
I know. I think it's just expected. I didn't know if I was going to or not.
Yeah. Well, my husband was like, "Yeah, you're going to." I'm like, "You're supposed to tell me no. You got this." And he's like, "Do you got it?" And I said, "No, I'm probably going to cry." He said, "Well, then you're probably going to cry."
It's so fresh.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's not even a year yet.
No. I will tell you. This is a little bit off topic, but I do want to say this to you. Just as from mom to mom. So October, that next February. So, 4 months or whatever. I wasn't eating right. I wasn't taking care of myself. I had let, myself slip as far as eating properly, and, I would just pound coffee. And and I wasn't eating right. And so this was the beginning of February, right after she was diagnosed. So 4 months. And I started to not feel so hot. And I was kind of feeling a little bit cold, chilly. And I thought, okay, great. I'm probably getting sick. I couldn't get warm. Long story short, my hands like froze, literally like froze like this. Okay. So my 17-year-old daughter was home with a migraine that day, Corinne, and I went into her room, and my face was feeling kind of tingly and numb, and I'm like freaking out, and I showed her my hands. She didn't even say anything. She shot up out of the bed, drove me to the ER. Long story short, I had low potassium.
Oh, wow.
Have you ever heard of that? I've never heard of it in my life.
I've heard of people like hallucinating from not enough.
Well, they hooked me up to EKG. It was not pleasant. But the point of this is I was neglecting myself. I was not taking care of myself. I was not eating right. I was not, like I said, I was pounding caffeine. When I wasn't drinking coffee in the morning, I was drinking tea or soda in the afternoon. You know what I mean? And then so I was trying to lay down at night and not sleeping. And I wasn't taking care of myself. And I just would like to say to the moms, you get lost, I think, right after the initial diagnosis. And it is easy to do that, to lose yourself in caring for your child and learning. I was staying up till 1 and 2 in the morning, Googling things and coming across, things that were sad, things that were helpful, and then getting up again in the morning and starting the cycle all over again. And my body told me, hey, let's knock it off here. So it's important to take care of yourself too. I just would like to say that from mom to mom.
Everybody see your cute little faces who we're talking about.
Hi, Delilah.
Say hi. Hi.
How are you?
Good.
Good. Do you know who I am?
Yeah.
You do.
Is that Cassie's mom?
Cassie's mom.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to let you guys go, but I did want to just add that, we have to take care of ourselves too. Try to rest and try to eat things that are healthy for you. And I learned that the hard way. I never knew that was a thing. I never even knew low potassium was a thing, but it landed me in the ER.
Eat a banana right now.
No, they made me drink some water that tasted like banana, actually.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, somebody else after me. We need to hear y'all's stories too. And share.
Yeah.
I don't care who sees me ugly cry. It's for a good cause.
Yeah. It's we're allowing ourselves to be vulnerable. And that's what I said. It's for the, it's for the good of the cause. And so it's
not about me. It's not about us. It is about us, but it's about them. And, Delilah, she's going to have to live with this for the rest of her life, unless there's a cure. But, one day she's not going to live in my house. I'm always going to be her mom and worry about her, but this is like her future. So, not that you can stop diabetes, but some people may not get that future, like you said.
Yeah, the ones that don't make, and this is another thing that this is for, the parents that hopefully we could spare, if they were just find out in time. And it doesn't happen overnight. No. There's like a buildup or whatever, but so if we could get this out there, and hopefully parents that were, to be, their child is to be diagnosed. Hopefully we can reach them, the ones like that we once were.
Yeah. And if anybody has any questions, y'all can put it in the comments. I'm an open book. So.
I'm going to go back through and read these comments. I didn't want to do that while we were talking. I wanted to just try to stick to this. I know we kind of were all over the place. It's gonna happen. It's,
Well, I have a cheat sheet. So, and this is actually something I can put if anybody wants my actual story. Look, I set up last night after I gave you a little quick one. I wrote all this out because if I get emotional, I'm gonna forget what to say. So if anybody wants this, like to compare stories, I'll give you a copy of that too. But
I'd love to see, like, we need to just do like I keep calling it a series. I don't know what else to call it. Like, of just all the stories before you were aware, before the diagnosis. So
yeah. Well, it makes me not feel so alone because I did miss things. I didn't miss them, but I excused them, which caused a later diagnosis. And I've talked before about the blame, and I know it's not my fault, but I feel like it's my fault and all that stuff. But it to hear other families' stories and other how long did you wait? Just make me feel better for a minute. Did you get there too, or or not make me feel better? But hey, let's cry on each other's shoulder about it.
I know what you mean.
So I think it's that's why I messaged you. Like, when you did your thing with Preston, I thought, that's really like, I like that. Like, let's do that. Let's talk. Like, I can read your stories all day long, but I want to see your emotion. I want to know you, you know? So I think that here it is.
Yes. Thank you.
Type
Yes.
1 mom.
Yes. Thank you for doing this.
But now you have a face, and you know, Delilah, you might hear my rants about, I was up at 3 o'clock in the morning and I'm so tired or whatever. But now you have a face to go with it, and Delilah's face and a story, and it can kind of make it personal. And maybe as a community, it's just therapy.
Well, the thing of it is too that I want to say, in this story and us talking and opening ourselves up and crying, like you said, being vulnerable to people that we don't even know, it's a personal story for you, and it's an intimate moment in a weird way because we're both, crying and getting emotional. These stories are only going to work if people share them. We have, 10 people one time, 8 people, and that's fine. They're watching, but they're in the group and they already know, but they just want to hear the diagnosis of your daughter, and they want to hear how it happened and how did you find out. But if we don't get these stories, shared, like for parents that need to hear the symptoms and, what to watch for before the DKA or before the, intensive care stay, that's what's important. Or all these stories are just, you know what I mean? All these stories are just going to be here between us in the group, and we need to get them out.
Yeah.
Oh,
Nick Jonas can do it. We can do it.
Who do we have there?
This is Lily. And then this is, stick your head in, this is Layton.
Hi. All of them look so much alike.
Yeah.
Oh,
this like daddy, like she's a little mini daddy. These two are little mini mommies. But all together they are similar.
Delilah and that's your middle child. Layton is the oldest. Layton's the oldest.
Oh, the girls, and then I have a 15-year-old son.
Yeah, Layton, and then
Lily.
Yes, Lily and Delilah, like they favor a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Did people tell you?
4. And Layton's 8.
Was it almost bedtime?
It is. And I told them, y'all better go back in that room and play and be quiet. But I rented Greenland, the movie, out of Redbox because I was told there was a story about type 1 in
that.
So
I saw that.
I'm just going to further on the tears, and Amy and the husband are going to watch that after
You are.
I'll just cry. I'll be puffy tomorrow. I'll be okay.
All right, well, I'm going to finish this. Is there anything else that you can think of that you would want to say to not a parent in before where, but a parent that maybe, like I said, was once us before I say goodbye?
Just listen to your gut.
That's
Okay. That sounds good. Thank you, Summer, for doing this. And I'm going to go back through, like I said, and read all the comments. But like Summer says, if anybody else here would like to share, please do. We have to keep this going, and we have to let other parents learn from us. And thank you guys so much. Bye. Where's Delilah?
Bye.
Say bye, Delilah. She's over here doing flips off the couch.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you. Bye.